Hey, it's Joe, and this is my next project.
Back in the day, if you wanted to drive Dale Earnhardt's Winston Cup car on the street, you just go up to a shop in North Carolina and buy one. Put license plates on it. I said, you could do that. I couldn't do that. If I wanted to drive Dale Earnhardt's Winston Cup car, this is what I would do. And this is what I did. I would buy a beat up old Ford 86 T-Bird Purolator Ford Derrike Cope's old car. This car was tired. It had been raced so much, and when you race in the back, it's a little rougher. Anyway, it was a tired car. I bought it from a friend of mine, Mark Jorgensen, who was a real racer. If anybody races and lives racing, it's Mark. Derrike Cope's Winston Cup car. So, get it home. And we pull the body off of it. Look at that firewall. It is just beat up. No telling how many engines have been in there, how many inspections. We got the body pulled off, but still it's pretty rough. The frame, I don't think it would sit on 4 jack stands. It just kind of teetered back and forth on 4 jack stands. So after we got the body off of it, we took it to a friend of mine, Bill Fishburne. He's got an auto body shop here in White Oak, and we put it on his frame machine, and he did us a favor and pulled it back where it would sit on 4 jack stands. And then what I'm going to do with this thing, my plan is I'm going to rebody it as a 98 Monte Carlo, 97, 98 Monte Carlo. That's what Dale was running back then. And you could order from Hutcherson Pagan a complete body, top to bottom, front to back, side to side, 97 Monte Carlo. And I did. And it comes in this box. In this box is front bumper, 2 fenders, hood, roof, 2 doors, 2 quarter panels, rear bumper, and a deck lid. Wow. NASCAR part number nose, NASCAR part number tail, and everything else was GM sheet metal. But when you get it and you start putting the thing together, it doesn't fit. See these little strips of fender, the front fender? That's all the front fender that I used. And it wasn't looking right. So what I did, I found a picture, a side view picture of Dale Earnhardt's car. And I blew it up in an opaque projector against my shop wall. I blew it up life size, and I drew the silhouette out on plywood. And I made a plywood template that I could actually hang right over the car and set the deck lid, the back window, roof, windshield, and hood and front bumper. And it didn't look anything like a real Monte Carlo. Once we figured that out, we were on our way. So there we are, hanging the body. And more little strips holding the front fenders. We got the bumper in place. Some of these pictures are a little dark. They didn't have videotape. I guess they had videotape back then. I didn't have videotape back then. Make the little half-inch reinforcement in the hood where that goes on. Got the hood on. Look, there it is. And these quarter windows. See on the top of that quarter window where I had to hammer it over, I didn't know how to do all that body work, but I heard you could do it on a shot bag, So I had a shot back, and I did it. It looked like a sack of walnuts, as you can see, but I did get it done. And actually, I did these windows twice. So when I got them all done, the angle, this angle right through here was just not right. So I had to do it again. Well, that's the difference between school and real life. In school, I just screw around and they pass me on to the next grade. In real life, building Dale Earnhardt's car, it's just got to look perfect, or as close as I can get to it. It's interesting just seeing how all this stuff goes together. I live in Texas. We don't see that many Winston Cup cars. Mark Jorgensen went to North Carolina. I think he lived there for a while. That's how he ended up with this car. This is the front windshield post, the A-pillar. Got that easy enough. Here's another little problem child, the dash. I bent this dash. I had a friend of mine, I could go over and use his brake. So I bent this dash, and my goodness, I bent it, and you can see here where I was welding it. I was welding it in the car, and I'm not that good a welder, especially on sheet metal because it's so thin, but I had my hood down. The weld was so beautiful, and then I lifted my hood up, and the whole dash was just warped. It was horrible. Had to cut it back out, had to redo the whole thing. But that's the way it goes. This is the firewall, and this was a 86 T-Bird is what it started out as. You can see the steering box, it's a rear steer. This area right in here actually had a Winston Cup tire, like a scatter shield, kind of screwed to the bottom of the floorboard there. And it was all beat up from stabbing all the motors and transmissions in there and stuff. So I made another one. I made another little patch panel. And it looked a little better. And here's the new dash. That's where I was welding it when it warped. And I was so proud of that weld. I was just dragging it along and it was beautiful. Warped. Okay, when you get to the side of the car, the side of these cars was no door. It was just not a door. We bent this. That's my friend Steve Williams. He helped me bend this. That's a piece of oil wheel pipe. Oil wheel pipe that's about 3.5 inch diameter pipe. And what we did, we took this flat piece that we had cut out, we riveted it to it, stood on it, and twisted it in order to turn up the rockers right there. It worked out real good. I'm going to use that again. Here it is on the car, when you put it on the car. Looks pretty scary there. I don't know if we're ever going to get there. We'll see. And then I brought it over again, borrowed my friend's bead roller, and we rolled that little lip in it, that little step down, all the way down. And we actually bent this curve all along here kind of by hand. We just kind of pushed it over. Oh. And we built this fender down here and had a little kind of a compound curve. We had to relieve the curve a little bit, cut it, re-welded it, and then we know we're going to Bondo over all these rivets. So we put the rivets in order, and they were tiny. We used really tiny rivets there where, where the Bondo would go over it. There's the side of the car with the dash, with the A-pillar in there. and it's starting to come along. The fuel filler on the back, again, the way we put the rivets in there, all in order, and I don't know if they had to be in order like that, just the way I did it. You know, this is the way we held the bumper up in the back, and I think a lot of cars were done that way, but I'll bet you Dale Earnhardt's car really had this bar going all out behind the bumper. Well, that's the back. He probably didn't have it go out in the back, but I bet you he had it go out in the front. He had a cattle guard in the front because he was bumping. And then it was just an exercise in welding. A lot of welding, very thin sheet metal, but went right along. Here's something else that Winston Cup cars for years have run these 67 to 72 Chevrolet truck arms. That's like on a Chevrolet truck, those year models. This is a Lincoln Versailles rear end. It's a 9-inch Ford rear end and about the width of a Granada. Also another old thing, but it had disc brakes. And there it is in real life. And had the truck arm mounts on there, each one. Just an old junkyard rear end. And this is something, I don't know if everybody knows this, but see this chain? All those Winston Cup cars had those. And that is when you jack the car up, the rear end doesn't sag down and comes off the ground immediately. And A.J. Foyt's, I've been under A.J. Foyt's cars, I've been under Bobby Allison's cars, I've been under a lot of cars, and they've all got that chain. Or they did back then. I don't know what they do now. And I think we're doing the Panhard bar here. Had a bracket, had 4 or 5 different height adjustments because that controls the roll center in the rear, and they use that a lot to trim the handling. And you can see I've re-drilled this rear end for the 5-on-5. I'm not sure if the Lincoln Versailles was I don't know if that was the correct bolt pattern, but anyway, the Winston Cups were 5-on-5. Then we get to the body work. Lots of body work. Bondo by the gallon. And you put it on there and you scrub it with a big long board. It took forever. And I think they did too. I don't know if they do that nowadays. I think they used to just Bondo the hell out of them. But I think now they're better fitters. They don't Bondo them a whole bunch. But I did. Here's getting close to the end. And you see the screens in the headlights. I had 97 Monte Carlo headlights mounted behind that, and I had fiberglass covers. I cut out this front end and I had those covers. I never really put them on, but my idea was that I would put this on a cover on there, but I never really did it. And the headlight, the contour of the headlight was in no way close to that fiberglass front. It wasn't even close. And then you move to the inside. Yep, you got to sand everything on the inside, top, bottom, sides, every roll cage, every little piece of flaking Derrike coat paint got sanded. Got the radiator in, the engine in, the headers fit, hood hinges, not the hinges here, but the little stays. I don't even know if they use those anymore. Anyway. And the way I build a car, I put it all together till it's just complete, almost down to every cotter pin. you could almost drive it. In fact, I have. Then blow it apart, paint everything. This is getting closer. It's coming. And I don't know how long this took. I don't think it was a year. I don't think it was a year. Finally got the dash done. I cut out 2 bars in here because I wanted 2 seats. I wanted 2 people to be able to ride in this thing. And epoxy primer. Epoxy primer. And there. Epoxy primer in the front. Oh, and when this is orange, things change. Here we go. That's epoxy primer, rear wheel well on the right-hand side. And then we painted orange. Look at that. I don't know if Dale Earnhardt springs are yellow. I'm sure they're not. I just wanted some differentiation between the colors when you looked under there. And at the time, this shock, which probably looks normal to normal people, racers today, but that was really something new, that you could run a shock upside down, because when I was growing up, you could never run a shock upside down. Anyway. 9-inch Ford rear end. That's got the pumpkin put in there. Also, another thing, when these cars ran, you can see the Panhard bar right there. And the Panhard bar, the body pulled on the Panhard bar. When you're turning left, that Panhard bar is being pulled on. And I'm not sure they do that these days. I know in the late models, they push on that Panhard bar and they put it in a way where it plants the right rear tire. Cool. Suspension is just cool. Here it is. We got the orange painted on the inside. We're going to take it over to my friend Bill Fishburne, and I'm going to beg him to let us use his paint booth. Look at that. That's the rear, inside the deck lid. Winston Cup cars used a 22-gallon fuel cell, which is that big, and it was all metalled in. It went in and came out from the inside of the car. But what I used was an 8-gallon fuel cell, and this black piece here, I had the bolts welded in to where it looked like it was welded, but really you could lift this up, and there was storage for, glass cleaner and wax, that sort of thing, all the stuff you needed. But I didn't want all that stuff sitting in the trunk when people came to look at it. So I could go to the show and I could hide it under there. Okay. If you watch racing very often, you hear about the crush panel. And that's the firewall in between the engine and the engine gases and the heat and the inside of the car. Here, this is the passenger side. You can see I have the silicone bead run up there. And then there's an aluminum panel that gets riveted in. And what happens, when the guy hits the wall, it bends this panel in, and then all the heat and the gas out of the engine can go in there. And if he keeps racing, he just passes out. Or not. Anyway, it's not good. It really makes it hot in there. Better not to hit the wall, what I'm thinking. Both crush panels in, crossbar over the engine, this little panel. We're ready to go. We're going to go paint. I got the engine in. Now look at that. That's a stock, like a, 72 or 3 Ford rotor. And it's not a floater. It has a floater cap on there. My dad drilled and tapped that to where we could have these, it would look like a floater, and really Winston Cup cars did not have that stock caliper in there. But anyway, it's all in the wheel and you didn't notice it that much. Here's the engine. Now the engine wasn't a Winston Cup engine. It was an okay engine, and it pulled the car along pretty good. It was fun to drive, but the interesting part about this, power steering pump, look at the size of the pulley on the alternator and the size of the pulley on the water pump. That is a speedway pulley, and it's made to run 200 miles an hour. But I had it on this car because every time I've gone to the races and I've been in the pits, and one of the things you notice on those race cars when they open the hood, man, that big pizza-sized pulley. And I wanted it. I wanted it on my car. And I got it from Banjo Matthews. I got his number. I needed some suspension parts. I needed a drag link. And I heard he sold them. I called Banjo Matthews Incorporated, or whoever it was, the company. And he answers the phone. Banjo. It was him. And sold me the pulley and the drag link, and I gave him my credit card number, and he abused it. It was just, my goodness, I never paid that much for anything in my life. So I couldn't get rid of the pulley, even though when this car ran real slow, when you're running at 30 miles an hour, you know, it tended to run hot. It really needed to run down the highway. I paid so much for that damn pulley, I wasn't about to take it off. In fact, I liked that pulley so much, I had to get my dad to turn down the bottom pulley on a lathe because it was hitting. Anyway, that's the story of the big pulley. And so we go to Bill Fishburn's body shop. And he was kind enough to let us use his paint booth and his painter, Brannon Long. Brannon is an excellent painter, and he just took charge of this thing, went to town on it. Painted the black and silver. Beautiful. Really good. You can see the brake ducts right in here. That's where the blinkers were. It's really short track stuff to have those in there, but I needed a place to put the blinkers. So I'll put them in there. Oh, and here, these tires came from, I think, Speedway, and there's some kind of weird tread. It's an I tread, but they were the same size, the width, the height, and when you're moving, they really looked like slicks. So what we did, I took an orbital sander and just sanded everything off the outside until they were slick. And then I had a stencil made, and I painted them Goodyear Eagle yellow. And a friend of mine, Bart Thompson, came by. He was working that day. We were rushing to get this done, and I'm sure glad Bart showed up. And he stenciled all these tires for us. Thanks, Bart. We compounded the car, got it very glossy, ready to go, and another friend of mine, there we're still polishing it, and another friend of mine, oh, wait, I got to show you that. Where is it? Now, during this car, I was just so into building. If you look in the background, there's a Camaro cut half in two. There's no roof on it, and it's cut half in two. That may be a later project. Why did I stop in the middle of this to cut a car in half? Well, anyway, got the car all polished up, cleaned up, ready to go, ready for stickers. And how do you get Dale Earnhardt stickers? Well, my friend Super Chuck said, you just order them from Earnhardt. And he was right. You could just order them, and they'll send you every sticker on the car. And here he is. He showed up. He even helped measure them out, and he put them in the correct place. Look at this. This back orange stripe, I used reflector tape here, and then the tail lights were in that stripe on the back. Can't hardly tell it there, but the rest of the car has a regular orange stripe around it, in between the silver and the black. Anyway, Super Chuck put all the stickers on it and did a wonderful job. Look at that. This car looks so much like Dale Earnhardt's car. If it was on the start-finish line, he would have got in it. And we're getting down. It's almost finished. And we're trying to go to Hot Rod Magazine had what was that? Where they cruised the country, the Power Tour, and we were trying to catch them going across the United. We didn't know where we were going to go, but we're finishing the car and tracking them across, and we're trying to catch them. So we're in a hurry here. And there's Chuck, and this is just the first drive. I'm just getting in it. We're finna leave. See, there's Camaro in the back. And we leave. We got our bow tie, specialized plates, dealer plates on there. It's all legal. Everything's legal. Go to a friend of mine's, Tim McJunkins Tire Center, and he was nice enough to align the front end for us on that car, and he does other stuff for it. He's just such a great guy. This is my mom and dad with the car. My dad was a racer his whole life, and my mom, well, what can I say? And we went to St. Louis. We caught the Power Tour in St. Louis the first night, do the car show. This is the only picture I have of the car with the lights on and the headlights and the blinkers in the front. And we got to that show. It was a great show. And some more driving down the road. You can't see the tail lights. See the little skip in the orange? That's where the orange tail light was inside there. And proof, we were in St. Louis. That was so much fun. It was just a blast to go up there. And someone introduced us to a man named David Temple. And he's a author and photographer. And he asked if he could come out and take some pictures of the car. You know, sure. You want to take pictures of the car? Why not? Anyway, he did. He came out. He called us, and he brought us out to an abandoned road somewhere, and we took these pictures. And it just took a long time. We spent a couple of hours taking pictures, and he was very quiet. There's my son. We took a lot of pictures. I don't know how many he took, but it was very good. He was very nice, very quiet, took a lot of pictures. But evidently he wrote an article, and he took the pictures and the article, and he sent them off. And what do you know? Super Chevy Magazine comes out with an article on our car.
2 pages there. Went on. 4th page. Even a 5th page. They really did good. Thanks, David Temple.
And that's how you get to drive Dale Earnhardt's car.
I hope you enjoyed watching as much as we enjoyed making it. If you did, tell your friends and subscribe. It's important.